with the scent of potpourri, films we commit to memory. Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly podcast that reviews one or two new release titles every episode with an occasional free-for-all segment at the end that we call Potpourri. You can find more of our work, including written reviews, full episode show notes, and the complete backlog of our episodes at obsessiveviewer.com. You can also write into the show by emailing me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. And if you'd like to support us and get access to hundreds of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, where you can get access to content on any of our tier levels on a recurring monthly subscription basis, or you can buy individual collections a la carte in the Patreon shop section. This week on the Patreon, I am continuing my Flanagan Fridays episode series. I think I'm on episode 4 of Hill House, maybe episode 5 at this point. I'm not sure. Time is a construct. And then on Saturdays, I'm doing Sci-Fi Saturdays, continuing pressing on through a very disappointing Foundation Season 2 on Apple TV+. And I also have a bunch of Criterion Channel-centric Patreon Potpourri episodes that are full-length episodes of me talking about 4 movies from Criterion Channel. And the most recent one, I started a kind of noir series. So this week, or last week, by the time you guys are listening to this, I reviewed Detour, Green for Danger, Brute Force, and the original Nightmare Alley, which unfortunately is leaving, or has left, Criterion Channel as of the day that this drops on February 1st. So once again, you can sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for all that and a bunch more content. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and you can find me on social media, including Letterboxd at Obsessive Viewer. And in our featured review this week, we'll be reviewing the musical remake Mean Girls, which opened in theaters on January 12th. And for this week's secondary review, we'll be reviewing the new sci-fi thriller I.S.S., which opened in theaters on January 19th. And joining me tonight to do that is my friend and IFJA colleague, Brent Leuthold, who can be followed on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/awakeinthedark, and find his reviews and podcast at awakeinthedark.com. Welcome back to the show, Brent. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. This is your first episode appearance in 2024 on the Obsessive Viewer podcast. So I'm glad to have you on for that. Yeah, I'm very, very pleased to have you on. It's always a treat. Of course. And recently, like, this is your first episode, this is your first guest spot on the Obsessive Viewer in 2024, but you have been busy. You had reviews of I.S.S., Mean Girls, The Beekeeper, and you had a write-up on your top 10 movies of 2023. So how are things going at Awake in the Dark? I should kind of ask, I guess. Yeah,
it's gone well. Yeah, still, we're, I don't think this January has been too bad in terms of releases. I mean, we'll talk about a couple of them, but I think people tend to think of January as kind of a graveyard. It certainly can be. I feel like it hasn't been too bad, and I'm sort of in that spot where I sort of have my watch list prepped for like the next 4 to 6 weeks. And we have like Dune in like March, early, like March 1st or whatever. But like even February, there's some stuff I'm like excited for. So it's I think it's already, there's not as many bad releases as I would have expected, and Beekeeper was kind of a pleasant surprise.
Nice. Yeah, I have not seen Beekeeper yet, but I am going to be reviewing it next week on the podcast, along with Argyle, which is interesting because like I've been doing this whole, like we were talking before the show, I've been doing this whole main review and secondary review. Usually the secondary review is a streaming title. This episode and next week's episode, we're going to be doing 2 theatrical releases for both reviews. So I think it's interesting how like deceptively strong the movie, the Cineplex has been so far this year in 2024.
I think Beekeeper's doing pretty well. I don't know if it's something where it'll be PVOD like in February. It could be. I don't know. I read something that I read a headline that I should have internalized more because I forget exactly what it was. But basically, like the majority of Christmas releases or things that came out in December are going to be PVOD this month or already.
Oh, wow.
So that's like whatever. Silent Night, Ferrari is going to be tomorrow. Sorry, I know this is going to drop on the first. So, right. Basically, well, by the time you're listening, a lot of these I think will be. So, it's just the way stuff is changing. Stuff. Rental, even though it's expensive, $20 rental, but stuff tends to hit that tier quite a bit quicker.
Right. And I should say that Patreon supporters have access to this episode on January 29th. So if you guys are on Patreon, you're hearing it then. But it's interesting. It's been interesting in terms of movies. And it's funny like we talk about like slow, like short release windows and moving to PVOD and everything, but like I'm judging from the box office results, I'm not 100% sure that I.S.S. won't be in PVOD when you guys are listening to this.
Crash and burn.
Yikes! Yeah, which we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's something. What do you have coming out on Awake in the Dark, like in terms of what's on the docket for you to review and what's to come?
If Aubrey gets her voice back this month, we're going to do a top 10 episode.
Nice.
That's really all I can say in terms of the podcast.
Nice.
In terms of reviews, I know my next one coming out will be Orion in the Dark, which I have already seen. Really enjoyed a lot. I think I know reviews are embargoed, but I think general reactions. Sorry in advance, Netflix, if you're upset about me saying I liked Orion in the Dark. But
well, here's the thing. Like I think it comes out. Does it come out February 1st?
February 2nd.
February 2nd. Okay, yeah. So you know, by the time this is out, you know.
Oh, that's right. By the time this is out. Okay, sorry. See, I'm used to okay. Yeah. So, so I can spoil it all away. And say, I wouldn't. But it's I really liked it a lot. So that'll be my review coming out the week of February 26th, I think, and then after that, I'm going to be meeting the real Agent Argyle.
Yes. Any theories? Who do you think the real Agent Argyle is?
Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah,
that is the number one
right. That's
thing that people were speculating, because she was like seen with Matthew Vaughn like for 4 seconds somewhere.
Oh Jesus!
There you go.
Yeah,
It would be great if it was Travis Kelce.
Oh, that would be amazing.
If Travis Kelce was the real Agent Argyle.
Yeah, I know that there were like rumors or like fan theories, like Swiftie theories, I guess, that maybe Taylor Swift is the one who wrote the book, because they have a copy of the book out that's like ghost written. It says like it's written by Ellie Conway, who's the character in the movie.
I see. Okay.
And they're like, oh, did Taylor Swift write this? Like, yeah. Taylor Swift. She wrote this book. Yes. During, this massive tour, all of the stuff. Romancing the NFL.
Yeah.
She ghost wrote a book for Matthew Vaughn's movie.
Wow, I didn't even realize that was that. I thought the theory was that she was just in the movie, but wow, she had time to ghost write a book. That's this fictional character. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, it's I don't want to get canceled by the Swifties. So I'm sure she did. She probably did write the book.
She did it all. Yeah.
Yes.
I would be fine with her being, who knows? I don't know. I don't really know much about this movie other than I've seen the trailer 647 times and a lot of famous people are in it.
Yes. I will say that this is so dumb. I will say this, that if it turns out that Taylor Swift is in the movie, I'm going to go to the roof of the theater and I'm going to Dua Lipa off of it. It's so dumb.
Dua Lipa. We know she's in it.
Yes. But yeah, it was something interesting. I was going to probably save this for the Mean Girls review, but I was kind of surprised when I saw the trailer for Argyle before Mean Girls, and it's like on Wednesdays we wear pink, but today we're wearing whatever the color scheme for Argyle is purple, I think. And it's like they made they twisted the trailer around to be Mean Girls-ish, which I thought was kind of clever. Yeah.
A tie-in. Wait, so who is okay? I don't even want to do the mental gymnastics. I know Paramount did Mean Girls. I don't know who's putting out Argyle. Somehow there's synergy there.
Yeah, because I think Apple Films.
Yeah, they're distributing it after. They're doing the peekaboo thing, like Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon.
Yeah.
Like it'll be on there at some point. So yeah. By the time this is airing, we might know when Napoleon's going to be on Apple TV+.
That's true. That is one hell of a triple feature too. Napoleon, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Argyle.
Yeah. I don't know how you watch those. Probably Argyle in the middle, maybe. I'm not sure.
Probably a little bit of a palate cleanser. Yeah. But before we get to the review, like I said, we're going to be reviewing Mean Girls 2024 and I.S.S. tonight. But I do have a couple of quick news items that I wanted to bring up that are obviously going to be a week old by the time you guys are listening to this. But over a week old at that. But currently right now, Sundance is dancing and Sundance. And the couple of things have come out about some acquisitions from there or some purchases. Two that jump out to me that I wanted to kind of talk about is that I'm just going to read the headline from, I think, Variety. Jesse Eisenberg, Kieran Culkin, Sundance comedy drama A Real Pain sells to Searchlight for $10 million. Brent, is this movie on your radar? I know that you do some virtual Sundancing. Are you doing that this year?
I really only got a ticket for one. The movie Love Me. That's the one with Stephen Yeun and Kristen Stewart. Yeah. A Real Pain was available to stream as well. I kind of just decided I don't know, one or the other. In the past, I've done virtual passes where you can do a bundle of 5 or 10 films, but this year it was just really limited in terms of what they were allowing to be streamed. So the stuff I was really most interested in, I don't know, Love Lies Bleeding. I saw the TV Glow is what it's called. I think. Yeah. The ones that, quite frankly, the ones that I think were the most notable titles, the majority of them just weren't available to stream. And Love Me and A Real Pain both sold out. Okay. I was able to get tickets for the former, but not the latter. But I don't really know what's going on there in terms of why they aren't allowing. It's $25 a ticket. It's not the cheapest thing in the world. I don't really understand. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes of securing those streaming rights, but I'm telling you, I don't know if they're worried about piracy, but it's watermarked. These are for consumers, by the way. We're used to it for screeners. Yeah. But these are watermarked. It's screeners. There's a pretty specific window. Jeez. It's funny if you want to get a sense of what critics or film critics go through in terms of screeners. Go buy a Sundance streaming ticket because it's pretty similar. You have a viewing window. It's watermarked and it's on all this stuff. So
I didn't realize they watermarked it.
Yeah, and it's and again, I don't care. It's their product. If they want to take those extra steps to protect it, totally cool with that. But sorry, if you don't make the films available, I'm not gonna. Yeah. So I ended up just doing a $25 one for Love Me, and that's it. And so that'll be available. I'll watch that later this week.
Nice.
But yeah, there's other stuff. There's reviews coming out, and I'm that looks great. I would probably pay $25 a ticket for that.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of stuff that have very much piqued my interest. I have I've been adding them to my watch list on Letterboxd and everything, so that when they do become available down the road, hopefully, I'll remember that, I was interested in this in January, but I've slept since then. So, yeah, but this movie sounds really interesting though. A Real Pain. I really like Kieran Culkin. Did you ever watch Succession?
No, I still haven't seen that show. I know it's the best show of all time, but that's one of those that that's in that category of kind of tough to convince Aubrey on that one, because my understanding is everyone's pretty mean to each other.
Yeah,
she'll watch we've watched Breaking Bad, we've watched Better Call. We watch. It's not like we watch only fluffy stuff, but if it's shows where like everyone's mean to each other and trying to grab power and money, like I don't know. Like at least Breaking Bad, he started out as Mr. Chips, and
right?
Sort of need that in the beginning.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone is. Anyway, I'm interested in the show. I would definitely watch it. Maybe she will too. I'm not sure, but yeah, I have not seen it. But I've seen Kieran Culkin pop up here and there.
Yeah,
he was very briefly in an episode of Swarm. Prime.
Okay.
With with the prosthetic, and you kind of figure it out from there.
Okay.
This was like one part of one episode. It was funny. But
wow.
Yeah, he's cool. I mean, yeah, and it seems like he has really great crime. Did Jesse Eisenberg direct A Real Pain as well?
Yes, I think he may have written it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I saw when you finished Saving the World, I saw that at Sundance, which he also
I missed that one. So I never got around to. Did that ever like sell anywhere or get distributed?
A24 bought it.
Okay.
I think it came out like the following January. So that's the other thing with this like watch list stuff. That's a good idea because this stuff, like there's stuff I've seen at Sundance that's never come out. And I'm not talking about like Magazine Dreams, which that's a different story. But like A Little Prayer, for instance, which is a solid movie with David Strathairn and Jane Levy. That I think Sony Pictures Classics picked up, but it still I don't think has been like really released.
Dang.
And that was from January of 23. I was from last January basically, and it still hasn't really been released.
Wow.
And yeah, so I think When You Finish Saving the World was one they delayed quite a bit before releasing.
Okay.
But it got a pretty small release. I liked it. I mean, it's nothing revelatory, but Julianne Moore and Finn Wolfhard.
Nice.
Yeah, mother son.
Okay. Nice.
Yep.
The other thing that came out of Sundance is that just today it was announced that Netflix bought a thriller called It's What's Inside in a huge $17 million sale. Is this on your radar at all? Do you know anything about it?
I don't think so. If you say that title, I think of Neon had a horror movie last year that just what's it called?
It Lives Inside.
It Lives Inside. What did you say?
It's What's Inside.
Oh my God. That's going to be a nightmare for this guy, right? I can't do that. Okay. It's What's Inside.
It's What's Inside. It Lives Inside. And I think, wasn't there like another like Inside? Well, Bo Burnham's Inside. And then
Willem Dafoe is in a movie called Inside.
That's right. Jesus.
Yeah, which I didn't particularly care for, but that is another one that came out, I think last year or maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah. But this movie, It's What's Inside, the reason why I kind of bring it up is that it sounds interesting. It's from a first-time filmmaker named Greg Jardin. It is set at a pre-wedding party that descends into an existential nightmare when an estranged friend shows up with a mysterious suitcase. So no idea what any of that means, but
nice.
But Netflix bought it, so they're going to. I guess the deal is that they're going to put it straight to streaming. They're not going to screen it in theaters or anything. And I guess Coleman Domingo executive produced the movie, so that's interesting.
Right on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good news about Hitman finally getting released from Netflix.
That's right.
Early June or whatever
June
it is. They just
7th,
released a trailer.
I think?
Yeah, and that was one that I think they acquired at Cannes or something.
Oh wow,
which was like last June. So that's another one where it's like, again, I don't know anything about the business strategy behind this stuff.
Right.
A lot of these acquisitions, they take months and months to finally actually drop.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that because I really like Glenn Powell, and Richard Linklater also. But it's interesting. I was listening to like a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about Glenn Powell and how they were talking about how like, oh, he looks like a movie star. He's very like he has that presence, and he's just so like he's so effortlessly charming and like and he's just so very talented in everything he does. And I'm like, yeah, it is a big burden. It is a big burden to have those qualities. But yeah. But no.
But Zach Galifianakis say, try looking like me and smelling like Cheetos, then see how
yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am a huge fan of Glenn Powell though. shout out to the rom-com Set It Up. I love it. Yeah.
Nice. Well, and I'm thinking of it now that we're talking about it. He was in another Richard Linklater movie, Everybody Wants Some.
Yeah, that is one of my my Dickie Linklater blind spots. I have not seen Everybody Wants Some.
That's good.
Yeah. Speaking of Linklater, and this can be the last news piece because I don't want to talk about Jurassic World or the Oscar nominations that are coming out tomorrow. That will be 2 weeks old by the time you guys listen to this. But locally here in Indy, apparently, I need to look and see, but apparently on February 10th and the 14th, the Can Theater is going to have like screenings of the entire Before trilogy. And you can even,
nice.
Yeah, and you can even buy like a triple feature pass, which I probably won't go to that. I still have not seen any of the Before trilogy. But I think it would be kind of fun to make that like a day, like make a day of it. Go see all three of them in the theater. In the theater alone on Valentine's Day.
Maybe you'll meet someone who knows. I know Before Sunset, which is the second one, is I think under an hour and a half.
Oh, nice.
Before Sunrise, I'm not sure exactly how long that is. Before Midnight, I know is the longest of the three.
Okay.
But that's like a relatively the structure of those movies and kind of how they move. I think that would actually be a pretty reasonable like triple feature if you did intermissions in between them or whatever.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool to see them back to back because I mean people probably listening know, but they may be each of those movies 9 years apart, and it's Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, those characters, basically how they develop. Linklater loves his time-based stuff.
He does.
So,
and I'm gonna make a very stupid joke here, but like I don't know anything about the tone of the movie. Well, I know somewhat of the tone of the movies and everything, but I've got to assume that Before Sunrise is probably the grittiest version of it because it's always darkest before the dawn.
That's right. It is. It's a dark film.
Yes. So if you guys are still listening, let's go ahead and go into our first review of the evening. Before we do that, any thoughts on anything that we've talked about before we go into the featured review?
I don't think so. Oscar nominations are coming out tomorrow, but you're right. By the time they'll already been dissected.
Do you want to make
times
any guesses so that people can listen to this when it comes out and think, "Oh, okay, Brent is a genius."
I don't. Yeah, it's pretty much already out there what's going to get nominated. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so burnt out on I think part of the reason why I'm just not that interested in Oscars or award season like that in terms of tracking awards nominations and everything is that at this point, I feel like I'm already in the thick of 2024. It's let's celebrate movies from 2023. That's great. But I don't want to dissect how many nominations this movie that I saw 2 months ago gets when I have beekeeping to attend to.
Right.
Yeah.
Apiary, duty's call. That's the thing is and you probably feel this way too. I know you just recorded a top 10 episode. You probably feel like it's kind of when you kind of have your word on it, the book's kind of closed.
Exactly.
And it's kind of and especially like I said, there's some to me review or releases that I'm interested in 2024. So I kind of feel the same way. It's kind of this again. It's I already know I love Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
It's we're gonna be hearing about it until the Oscars in March or whatever. It's great. It's good. Give it all the awards. But anyway. So I hear you on that one.
Yep. So let's go ahead and go into what is surely going to be the Best Picture winner for the 2025 Academy Awards. Mean Girls.
Better be.
So, yes. So we are going to, of course, do a non-spoiler and spoiler review for Mean Girls. I'll have a timestamp in the show notes, which can be found at obsessiveviewer.com/OV413 or in your podcast app of choice. But yeah, so we'll do a non-spoiler review and then play a clip from the trailer and then go into spoilers. So to kind of give some background, Mean Girls is the musical remake of Mean Girls 2004. The premise is Katie Heron is a hit with the Plastics, an A-list girl clique at her new school. But everything changes when she makes the mistake of falling for Aaron Samuels, the ex-boyfriend of Alpha Plastic Regina George. Directors for this movie were Samantha Jane and Arturo Perez Jr. Writer was Tina Fey, and I have a couple of these names spelled out phonetically after looking on YouTube for pronunciation, but the cast includes Gary Rice, Renee Rapp, Ali Cravala, and Jacquel Spivey. So Brent, let's get us kicked off with this review with our, let's talk briefly about 2004's Mean Girls. How did you feel about that movie? Are you a fan? And what were your expectations going into this musical endeavor?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the original one. I feel like I was when it came out, even though it's like I was 15 at the time. So it's kind of like, oh, well, like I don't even remember if I saw it in theaters, to be honest. But you're still kind of that like, oh, I don't know if I want to see a girls movie sort of thing.
Yeah.
But whenever I saw it, probably soon after, I really enjoyed it because it's extremely funny. It's very witty, and it is true to a certain version of high school, and probably for like girls, probably like the female experience. I think there are definitely things in that movie that are probably still true, 20 years on, and maybe will forever be true. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of that movie. Yeah, I didn't see the sequel.
Oh, I forgot that there was a sequel. Jesus.
Which apparently is just like totally different people and
yeah,
direct to DVD.
I think it's one of those direct to DVD things.
I was aware that there was a Broadway musical, didn't know anything about it, didn't know any of the music or anything like that. When I heard about the movie, I knew that it was a musical, but I didn't really put together that it was like basically an adaptation of the Broadway musical.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of, so when I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, 20-year cash grab. Got it. Like, I understand that. But then I was like, oh, okay, so they're adapting the musical. And then I was like, wait, I know people like Mean Girls 2004, but are there a bunch of fans of the musical that were clamoring for the musical to be on film? So that's kind of where I stood going into this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because like I wasn't I was kind of peripherally aware of the musical. I don't think, like, I gathered from obviously from the trailers that this was basically a retelling of the story. So it's nothing like new or unique in terms of the actual plot. But yeah, that's interesting because like you would think that if the movie or if the musical was big enough to warrant a feature film, adaptation of that musical, they would maybe also do like what they did with Hamilton on Disney Plus, like do the musical in there. But I don't know. This is a weird movie for me. Yeah. Like you, I loved the 2004 movie. I was like, what, 17? I was like probably a junior in high school. I graduated in 2005 and math is not my strongest suit, but yeah, so like junior year of high school, just about. But one of the things that I really loved about the original Mean Girls is that it is this very clever deconstruction of, high school cliques and the kind of culture of high school, and with a feminine perspective. But in addition to that, like the way that it utilizes the character of Katie being someone who is out of her element and grew up like in Africa, and she views like the catty nature of the plastics and everything through the lens of wildlife and like in you know, the jungle or whatever. And like, that's really interesting to me, the way that the way that it is portrayed in the 2004 movie. And then this movie just is fine, but it's also the struggle is that it kind of feels like it's 2 hours of trying to justify why this thing exists for me. And it doesn't really succeed at that. But yeah, so that's a roundabout way of kind of talking about where I was at going into this movie. Let's talk about the movie and non-spoilers itself, which is kind of goofy because I don't think you can really spoil the movie that much, but
it'd be pretty much spoilers for Mean Girls 2004.
Exactly.
Because really beat for beat, it's extremely similar.
Yeah. At several points, it feels like it is just it's checking those like iconic lines off of a checklist. But it's funny because from what I understand, like I know Renee Rapp was in the Broadway production, and it's just like she does a good job. Like she's very good in this, but it just feels like it's a bunch of people cosplaying the 2004 movie. And it just doesn't feel, it just feels like a little bit lifeless, I guess would be the word that I would use. How did you feel about it overall?
Yeah. And for like a little more context, so this is one that Paramount was originally going to put on Paramount Plus. And then so this is a similar kind of track that Smile took.
Okay.
Which is in September 22. So basically that was a small budget. I think that was like a Blumhouse thing. And that was one they were going to put on Paramount Plus, and it tested well enough at their screenings that they decided to say, like, well, let's bump it up and do a theatrical release. Yeah. And that movie did really, really well. Yeah.
It's getting a sequel this year.
Oh, there you go. Smile again or whatever. Smile wider? I don't know. Anyway, so
Smile, $sign.
Yeah, right. So with this one, I think it was a similar kind of track. To be honest, I was thinking during this movie with that in the back of my mind, like, yeah, this probably would have played better on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it's just sort of kind of made to be one of those tiles that you kind of scroll past and like, oh, this is pink.
Yep.
So at some point they decided this is like a big league thing. And yeah, I think the miscalculation with this really comes down to misjudging the clamor for Mean Girls the musical.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's really there. And so you're kind of there and you're like, okay, well, here we go. This is a movie based on a musical that's based on a movie that's based on a book. So right there, you're kind of like, oh boy, please do something new.
Yeah.
Like that's not that they're not going to go that route. And so I'm like, okay, well, at a certain point, we were like 10 minutes in and I was like, why didn't they just do a Gen Z version of Mean Girls?
Yeah.
Like that maybe that wouldn't have been a good movie either, but like, at least it would have been something. I probably would have had like, whatever, I would have had my issues with it in terms of the cash grab aspect of it. But, at least try to do something different, because you're sort of left with like, okay, well, the plot beats are the same. They're they're interrupted by music that's not music numbers that generally aren't that great. And then you have, actors who are playing these same characters that, I think for the most part, I don't really know that anyone is besting any of their performances in the original 2004 one. And so I'm just kind of like you said, yeah, like, why are we here?
Yeah. And that's something that really, that kind of really weighed on me. A couple of things about that is that, one, Tina Fey wrote it. Like this feels like it's the kind of movie that was born out of like the kind of circumstances that I'm sure Mean Girls 2 was born out of, like trying to capitalize on something. But for Tina Fey to come back and write this, it feels a little bit weird for a couple of reasons. One being that what I love about the 2004 movie is that it is a very sharp, very clever, not necessarily deconstruction, but like it's a sharp and clever look at teen life in 2004. One of the reasons why I kind of liked it was I was a high schooler in 2004. It felt like it was a genuine representation of that. Here, this movie is 20 years after that, and it kind of just feels like the same thing. And granted, I don't know what high school's like, but I feel like it's just transposing the culture and the everything from 2004 onto this, and it just feels like they throw social media in, and it's like, okay, that's fine. We'll get away with that. But it made me think of how in 21 Jump Street, how freaking clever that was for them to have this culture shock of like not knowing how high school is these days as they're going undercover. And like, not to say that this is what this movie should have been, but like, it just made me think like 20 years is a long stretch of time between two movies depicting high school. Like, I don't think that there is a way for this to be as accurate or as sharp and biting as the original was without doing, like you said, like a Gen Z version of it. So it just felt very disconnected from the pulse of Gen Z, as I've come to know it from TikTok.
That's the thing, is it's like, again, if just taking a step back to what you said, like this is the easiest paycheck that Tina Fey or any screenwriter is ever going to get.
Yep.
I mean, good on her. Love Tina Fey, and I know she's doing a lot of touring now too.
Oh,
but
nice.
Like, there's a few there's some extra kind of little one-liners that maybe are a little different, a little updated, that sort of thing, and some that are probably from the musical. And so I'm sure she wrote the musical. So it's like, so you're basically kind of like copying notes from 2004 movie that you wrote, and then the musical that you probably co-wrote. This is like the easiest whatever amount of money she's ever going to make.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like, I think her husband may have written the music. Is that her husband? I'm not sure. Music, I don't know. But anyway, that's also curious to me, because there are, like, the music is fine. The music, like, there's maybe one that stands out, one like musical number that stands out, that's I'm not gonna really think about after I hit publish on this episode, but it was in the moment pretty good. Like the Halloween the Halloween party one. First of all, it's funny throughout that sequence, but the stylistic choice of having like the party just stop and Regina and Aaron Samuels doing their thing, like that was really cool. That was really interesting. But that's like the one like standout for me. And it just, like you said, it would have played much better on streaming than in the theater for me.
I mean, some of the musical numbers I think are staged pretty well, and some of the music's pretty good. I think I'd Rather Be Me, which is, I'm sorry, the actress who plays the Moana, I'm not even going to try because you did your best at the top of the episode. I think she's very talented. I think she does a pretty good Janice Ian. Again, I don't think it's better than what Lizzie Kaplan is doing in the original. And that's like, getting back to that, like, I think this is the sort of movie that really made me appreciate the things that I didn't even realize I appreciated about the original, which is like the casting is impeccable in that movie. And really, I mean, the performances, like this is Mean Girls, like what Lindsay Lohan did in that movie, that's almost certainly her best film performance. I mean, you look at where everyone kind of was in their careers. That was the same year as The Notebook. So Rachel McAdams was still definitely like on the rise. And then Amanda Seyfried obviously had not really gone on to that level yet. Lacey Chabert sadly has not. She's gone the other way, more the Hallmark movie direction. But but look, I mean, she's a great Gretchen Wieners in that role. Like everyone is so well cast in that movie. Like super funny. Tina Fey, as Snorri, and then Tim Meadows, the principal, who he's funnier in the original too. Like that was a real bummer seeing him in this, just because not because it's not good to see Tim Meadows, but I was just like, dude, this stick is so much funnier in the original and all that.
It really is, and it's so weird the choices that they make, which we can talk about that in spoilers later, but like the choices between like the Tina Fey and Tim Meadows characters between this movie and the original is like, it's one of like the only like major changes, and it falls flat. It's weird. It takes all of the comedy out of the original in regards to those
John
characters.
Hamm is the Coach Carr, who Coach Carr is barely in the original. Like he's pretty much there for a few lines, like shakes the basket of condoms or whatever, and that, and it's like that's where that character works. Like you don't need to get John Hamm for this role. They don't do anything with that,
right?
But like just getting back to the whole thing of, okay, let's just start from scratch. We have the title of the movie, Mean Girls, right? Okay, so it's 2024. So what do we do? Well, why don't we sit down and think, in the 20 years that have passed, what makes girls mean now?
Right.
Like, what is the 2020 version, the 2024 version of Mean Girls? Like, okay, well, maybe they're not wearing pink and, being overtly manipulated. Who knows? I mean, look, I don't know, because I'm not the screenwriter, but I'm just saying, like, I would surmise that there are a lot of differences, or maybe there aren't, and maybe you compare and contrast what doesn't change and what has changed. Those are the opportunities that you have with this movie, and it really doesn't even try.
No, there is no attempt at it was just so not on anyone's radar to do anything different or new. And like I mean, I get it. I guess like I appreciate the effort, if I can say that, sort of. But it did not work for me. And something that like the very, very cynical thought that I had during the movie was maybe this is the Gen Z version of it, and this is going to be a very cheap shot at the beloved social media platform that has grabbed the attention of all of Gen Z. But like throughout the movie, like there were moments that are clearly like they are 100% lifted from the original. Like it is a remake in that there are moments that are spot on, except for maybe a line or two switched around, that are exactly like the original movie. And like I kind of thought like maybe this is the Gen Z version of it, because if you go on TikTok, you'll see one trend and then you'll swipe and you'll see that exact same thing over and over and over again with slight variations. Meanwhile, your late 30s, meanwhile, you're in your late 30s and posting about movies and books and everything, and it's getting like 200 views, but that's fine. But no, it just feels very much like if there is like the Gen Z audience for that, I think that the familiarity of it is like, it's veering like a little bit into Memberberry territory, but it's also like, yeah, let's just do the same thing. And it works in terms of the movie being a success, but yeah, again, as an aforementioned man in his late 30s, I was not amused.
Does the target audience of this movie enjoy musicals?
That I would say, I mean, the marketing department doesn't think that it does, that they do.
Yeah, it's like right, because they keep burying the fact that it's even a musical, and in fact, of course, like opening weekend, yeah,
and like the trailer like licenses an Olivia Rodrigo song instead of doing like music from the movie. Like it's so weird. Like that whole trend is weird. And I guess it's maybe a little bit warranted because like there was at least one group in my screening that at one point late in the movie when they broke out into another song, like I think I heard someone like a few people in that group like groan derisively at it. Like they were kind of over it. But yeah,
I have to say, this is the point in the podcast where I reveal that I went to the on Wednesdays We Wear Pink early access screening on the Wednesday. And so it was literally me and like a row of all these other, high schoolers wearing pink. And I was just like in a dark hoodie probably and sunglasses.
You didn't break out your Barbie fit?
No, I should have. I actually wasn't sure. I was like, do I even need to go to the Wednesday screening? That's not really. And then I still ended up going. But regardless, it was a similar thing. Well, I think they were excited for the movie. I don't know if they even enjoyed it. But at one point during one of the musical numbers, someone was like, here we go.
Jesus.
And I was like, yeah, man, it's a musical. Like, I didn't ask for it to be. I don't think it should be. I'm sitting here and I don't think it should be. Because again, like I don't think people were clamoring for a musical version of this movie.
No.
So, you're pretty much left with if you take out the music stuff, you're pretty much left with what you said, kind of people cosplaying. I think Angourie Rice, I do think she does. I don't want to say she's doing something super different than what Lindsay Lohan is doing, but I think she is evoking that character quite well, at least the more naive version of the character towards the beginning. Spoilers for Mean Girls 2004, but when she sort of turns plastic and turns mean, that seems not as I don't really buy her as that very much. I think she does the nice girl next door thing very well. I think the other actresses, I think the other three plastics are just about copying, trying to do. I think Renee Rapp would be the exception. I do think she's doing something else. I don't know if I necessarily like it better. I don't think she's just trying to do Rachel McAdams' performance, but the other two plastics very much so. In fact, is it Bebe Wood, whoever plays Gretchen in this movie, is very much has Lacey Chabert's like cadence and timbre totally down for Gretchen. And then the other actress, I'm sorry, I know it's a mononym, her name, but
Avantika
playing Karen. I definitely like some stuff that she had going. I do think ultimately it is parodying a lot of what Amanda Seyfried did, and these were original characters. I mean, in the 2004 one, and you look back and you're just like, oh my god, like leave it alone. It's like the classic,
absolutely.
Like just leave it.
And like if you're not doing anything different with it, then what's the point? It's just so weird. And I
think that's their excuse, is that they're this is a musical version. It's like, well, okay, but try again.
And that's the thing that really bothered me about it, is that I feel like the original Mean Girls was like an hour and 40 minutes, I think, if that. And this is 2 hours, but because it is a musical, I feel like there are so many like small things, like character things that are just omitted from it to accommodate the musical numbers. And like some of it's like put into the musical numbers, and it's the musical thing where they're singing what they're feeling and all of that. But like, I feel like there's just a noticeable absence of certain character development, certain character identity, like Gretchen and Karen kind of, they feel like they're doing the Lacey Chabert and Amanda Seyfried thing, but what they did in the original movie was they made like complete characters that had their own like thing in the clique. But here it's just like we said, it's cosplaying it, and then you add to that the fact that that like the entire kind of operation of infiltrating the plastics and getting back at Regina on behalf of Janice is like, it's kind of just going through the motions. There's nothing like there's a moment in the original Mean Girls where Katie says something like, "Yo, I can't make it to your art show because I've got some plastic sabotage going on tonight." And then Janice is like, "Well, we don't have anything, planned." And she's like, "Oh, this is just stuff I'm doing on my own." And like, that is in this movie, but it's more like "Oh, I can't go. I've got this thing going on." And it's like, you miss out on like the nuance, if I can say that, of the manipulation and the actual like infiltration of the cliques and everything. And because of that, it just feels empty. Yeah,
it doesn't hit as hard the
Right.
moment in this movie where, give me back my pink shirt, the whole falling out that she has,
yeah,
with Janice and Damien. It's just like a dud here, whereas it feels like a real betrayal. And again, a part of that is the way Lizzie Kaplan plays it. Like, sorry, and again, I have nothing against the Moana actress. I think she's actually good in terms of the musicals. Okay, this is one thing I mentioned for our review. Just paradoxically, let's just think about this for a second. Regina George, okay, we know what she's about. She feels that she's above music theater people and really everyone in high school. Why would she be belting out show tunes?
Yeah.
Like
when you
it
get
kind of
into
doesn't
that,
make sense that the plastics would be music nerds or music theater nerds.
It's
and again,
tough.
That's probably thinking about it too much, but it's like that movie doesn't think about what that would seem like, because again, this probably all plays on Broadway. Like it doesn't matter, but in a movie, you sort of like people aren't on a stage, like they're just there, and so in this environment, it's like that doesn't really make sense.
No, it definitely doesn't. And I think that there can be an argument that, the musical numbers aren't literally literal, like
they're not literally happening.
Yeah. Sure. But also when you have like a movie that seems kind of hollow overall, like those like nitpicks are going to come to the surface because like there's nothing else to really latch onto. But I do have a couple of things I kind of want to talk about in spoilers. Do you want to transition over to spoilers for Mean Girls 2024?
Yeah, I have something I was going to talk about towards the end that might be considered a spoiler. So yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and play a clip from the trailer, and then we're going to go into spoilers for Mean Girls. Of course, you can check out Brent's review on awakeinthedark.com and follow him on Letterboxd and all that. So I'm going to play a clip from the trailer for Mean Girls 24, and when we come back, we're going to be spoiling this movie and by extension the 2004 movie. So stay tuned.
Yep.
Oh, hell no!
Move.
Hey, PG-13, please.
What was that?
Oh Lord, it's the queen bee.
Regina George.
Don't look her in the eye!
You could be really hot if you changed, like, everything.
All right, so spoilers on for Mean Girls 2024. Brent, is there anything in this movie that you want to go into in spoilers to get us kind of kicked off into this section of it?
There's one scene towards the end that is actually a deleted scene in the original.
Oh, really?
And it's Katie and Regina meeting at prom, and they're in the bathroom, and it's when Regina has all the headgear and everything. So this is not in the original movie, is a deleted scene from the original movie, but they include that interaction in this. I liked it in this movie, not necessarily more than the original scene, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I like its inclusion in the story. And actually, that was kind of the point. I was like, okay, I actually really like what Renee Rapp is doing in this scene. Mm-hmm. And she's really drugged up, and she said that several times in the scene. But I actually thought there was something about the way she was playing that I really liked. And that ends up being, like, of course, like her last scene in the movie. Mm-hmm. But I just want to say that is something I like that they included, because I think it's a neat story beat that is technically different than the original. And I like the way the actresses play it. And Gary Rice and Renee Rapp play that moment. So I did want to mention that, because I don't even know how many people who've seen the original know about that scene towards the end.
Yeah, like I love the original, and I had no idea that was a deleted scene. That's really interesting, and I do like it in this movie. And I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. Like Renee Rapp, her demeanor in that scene, and the like, it really toes that line between like sincerity and drugged up, like a high on painkillers tone. I like that a lot. Yeah, and I kind of wish that there was more of things like that, like more.
Well, because that's a scene that gets at what we're talking about, where it's a scene that means something and is also funny.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, there are just not a lot of those in this movie, especially in comparison to the original.
Oh, absolutely. And like, that was one of the big things for me that, we may have touched on this in non-spoilers, but one of the big things about this movie that just really annoyed me was that it doesn't really do anything of note to preserve that culture shock that Katie has coming to public school and being in that. Like, there are some fun things that's done with it, like the like that one musical number with them all like behaving like animals, and like that's clever, that's fun, but like that's such a big part of the original movie that Katie is viewing it as like how to navigate this world socially, using what she knows. And it just feels like it's just such a forgotten thing in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, she's just that part of her character, I think they kind of jettison.
Yeah.
They just don't really care to go into that. She mostly has a lot of kind of like I want songs, and like that's kind of most of her stuff early on. And it doesn't really speak to where she's coming from, what she's kind of about. Again, I think Angourie Rice does a good job with the role, but there's just not. I mean, there's not as much to this character.
Totally agree. It's just not a lot of substance to it. And there are other parts in the movie that it cuts out certain things about other characters. Like this is so peculiar to me since Tina Fey wrote the movie, but like there, like in the original movie, there's the whole scene where they run into her at the mall and
she's working. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that's such an interesting and like somewhat like quintessentially teenage experience scene. Like if you see like a teacher outside of school, like that's freaking weird. But like here, it's just like, that's nothing. It's just, there's nothing in there. That scene is not in it. Instead, it's condensed to where like she says that she's a pusher, and like that's what it, like that's where that comes into play. And it's just like, it's weird. It just feels just so lifeless to me.
Yeah, the dogs barking outside at my house right now are reminding me of the line that Damien has that, I love seeing a teacher outside of school. It's like seeing a dog on its hind legs. It's like, and it's a neat scene so it's funny. One of the I think probably the best kind of Fayeism that makes its way into this movie that I don't know if it's from the musical, but it's not in the original movie, is Katie says, "Oh, I was homeschooled," and Miss Thornberry says, "Oh, that's a nice way to take shots from my union." That's the zinger. Like
that was
that's
great.
Funny.
I
and
like
that's the
that
thing.
a lot.
It's like, and it's like those kind of lines. Like that's Mean Girls, man. Like that movie has 100 of those. And I mean, look, maybe you just can't think of 100 more. I don't know, but I'm just those are the kind of glimmers where I'm like, all right, well, she's still got some gas in the tank, But it's just, again, like, that's the challenge. That's the challenge is, if not Tina Fey, and that's fine, then just try to have someone make it their own thing. It wouldn't even have to be as funny, or it doesn't have to be as good as the original, but just try something that's not just the musical version of the movie that people know.
Exactly. Like, give it to someone who has something to say about like modern teenagers or what have you. Yeah, and there were a couple of like weird, like sort of anachronistic to the tone moments like late in the movie where it like flirts with this meta humor thing that's absent in like the rest of the movie. Like they both kind of work, but it's weird and it stands out. Like Tina Fey, like she's about to address the students in the like makeshift assembly, and she like starts to sing, and then she's like, "Oh, sorry, I just had to clear my throat." And like,
oh right,
that was fun. That's fun. And then like when all the girls are giving like are sharing like what like apologizing, like there's that one that's just she's just like so and so I'm sorry I said you were dragging during revenge party. And then like there's I think like Tim Meadows like looks at Tina Fey and is like what and she's like nothing, don't worry about it. And I'm like that's funny, but like nothing else about this movie is meta to that point. Like why? Like it just felt weird. So. I
think they're just trying to fill it out with something. I don't know. I just they're just trying to whatever. But just kind of trying all sorts of stuff. Yeah. But it's just who knows? I don't know who it's for. No, that was the big thing when I was watching this movie. Is like, okay, it's fine to say, it's not for me, a mid-30s, guy, that's fine. But, technically, I shouldn't be, by that token, I shouldn't be enjoying the 2004 one either. Right. And I still watch that movie and still really enjoy it because, again, it's really, really funny. And it does still have, again, things to say that I do think are sort of just ingrained in how, social psychology, how that stuff, kind of, plays out in high school and beyond. So,
Yep. It, I don't know. It is what it is. Final thing about it. The Lindsay Lohan cameo was interesting. Again, it kind of flirts with that meta stuff too, but like, that was nice. Apparently she got a huge payday on it, so that's good.
I would imagine. Yeah, I know she showed up at the premiere too. She has one line that I thought was really funny, and I forget what it was. She was like, "Oh, I already tried that," or something.
Oh yeah, something like that.
It was like a meta joke.
Yeah,
the way she said it was actually really funny. So,
at one point she says, "This has only ever happened once before." And then
maybe it was that. Yeah.
And then after that, she says something else similar, like something like, I've tried that before, it doesn't work, or something like that.
Yeah. I think so. It maybe both of those. So that was good. That stuff's fun. And if she got a payday out of it, good for her. I know there was a whole thing about like, they wanted to do a commercial and Rachel McAdams didn't want to do it. And, it's like such a weird thing because like, like Lindsay Lohan, you could kind of put it in big groups, like Lindsay Lohan and I guess maybe Leisha Subair, kind of, even though I think both of their career trajectories were pretty different after this movie. And then Amanda Seyfried and Rachel McAdams are like, they all four had pretty different careers after this. Yeah. And so I don't know, when you get into all this reunion stuff, it's like, I don't know. I don't think you can expect everyone to come back. I don't know what the statute of limitations are for a lot of these things. How long are they tied to these franchises? So all the more reason to make it its own thing. And if you want to have a cameo, that's cool, but don't. I hope it's not. I hope they didn't. Whatever. They're all millionaires, so who cares? But I hope they didn't like pressure all these people to come back and try to reprise all this stuff. But I thought the cameo was cute.
Yeah. Speaking of cameos, did the original Aaron Samuels have a cameo, or was that something I had like just invented in my brain?
No, I don't think he did. Okay. He was in a movie I saw called Snowfalls last year. Okay. That was god awful. He that actor, I forget his name, but he's probably in his probably early 40s now. His like in the movie, he's like on FaceTime or whatever. So like, it's such a literally phoned in performance. Amazing. Jesus.
I think that's
the dude
what
from
I was
Better Call
confused.
Saul was in it too. Oh God, whatever his name is, Howard Hamlin. Anyway, the actor who plays him in the show. So both of them had like, that's what I think that might have been what it is. I was probably glib about it. And I was like, I think they paid these actors on Cameo to get them in this movie. Like we'll pay you whatever amount of money, just read these lines and act like you're related to our characters. And
that was the shitty movie that you saw before. Okay.
Yeah, it's called Snowfalls. It's very bad.
You had mentioned that in like the group chat we're in, and I thought that it was, I think I was just scrolling through and I was like, Oh, I guess he's in Mean Girls. Okay. And I thought
It wouldn't surprise me if they
Yeah.
offered that actor, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I just forget his name, to be in this Mean Girls 2024. Wouldn't surprise me, but who knows?
Yeah.
He might have popped up and I missed him. I have no idea.
Like I was thinking about that because I was like expecting it, and then like I at one point I left the theater to go pee and then came back. It was like gone for like 30 seconds. And I made sure to just wipe my hands all over everyone's seats to save time. But I'm just kidding. I wash my hands. But but like that, I was like, did I miss that? And then I was like, immediately, I was just like, okay, I don't really care if I missed it or not. So
yeah,
it's good to know that he
I have
doesn't
to say too, I'm sorry if I'm objectifying people, but the new Aaron Samuels actor, sorry. Not as dreamy as the original Aaron Samuels.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I've got to agree.
He's got the hair. The actor he's playing with this new one. Like he's got the hair. Not a bad looking kid, but sorry, like not an improvement or really even a lateral move.
He's
from the original Aaron Samuels.
He's got, at least in my memory, he's got a little bit of a Jacob Elordi thing going.
Yes, I could see that.
Yeah. Which, complete aside, and then we can go on to the second review, I promise, that anytime like I see clips from SNL or something from when Jacob Elordi just recently hosted, I guess, in my head, this is so dumb, but in my head I keep saying, oh Lordy, it's Jason Elordi.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
I've actually never said that to myself, so but I'm probably going to keep doing that. I just saw a movie. We don't have to go on tangent, but yeah, I saw a terrible movie that he was in with Zachary Quinto and a fake chimpanzee.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I haven't seen that.
Yep.
I'm aware of it, but anytime I see it like on Letterboxd or anything, I want to add.
Oh man,
I want to add an A to the title because. He
went that away.
He went that away.
He went that away. It would fit. That would be a fitting title. It was bad. But yeah. So Mean Girls 2024 is not as bad as he went that way.
That's good to hear. Good to hear.
Badge of honor.
yeah. I ended up rating this movie 2 stars out of 5. It did not diminish the feelings I have toward the original, and it just didn't do anything for me. So that's what I rated it.
Yeah, I was at 2.5. Actually, watching it I was definitely more negative when I was watching it, but I was I think a bit more charitable in hindsight, thinking like, okay, well, like these musical numbers like worked, and like the way that they put this together sort of worked, and I think it was a little more charitable, but it doesn't work as a movie overall. I don't. Yeah. I think it's hard for me to say that it does. So.
Yeah, I agree. So that's Mean Girls 2024. It is currently in theaters. It is kicking butt in theaters too. Like I think it won the weekend, this past weekend as of this recording, completely demolishing the International Space Station. So yeah. So I mean, good for them. Good for Tina Fey. But yeah, it didn't really do anything for me. So. Yeah. That is our review of Mean Girls 2024. Brent, do you want to go into probably a brief-ish review of I.S.S.?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. I'm going to play the little interstitial to get us into the secondary review right here. It's just a quick thing.
Tell me I view obsessively.
There we go, and we're in our secondary review of the evening. The movie is I.S.S. It is currently in theaters as of this recording, probably not going to be in theaters much longer because it did not do well in the box office. The premise is tensions flare in the near future aboard the International Space Station as a conflict breaks out on Earth. Reeling, the U.S. and Russian astronauts receive orders from the ground. Take control of the station by any means necessary. Director was Gabriella Cowperthwaite, which I believe... no, this wasn't her feature debut. Writer was Nick Schaefer, which I believe this was his first script, I think. Cast includes Ariana DeBose, Chris Messina, John Gallagher Jr., Masha Mashkova, Costa Ronan, and Pilo Asbek. butchering. I'm so sorry. But that is ISS. Brent, we can do a non-spoiler thing. If we want to go into spoilers briefly, we can say that later. But how did you feel about ISS?
Yeah, overall, I liked it. This is a small budget kind of sci-fi, sort of, pressure cooker. Pretty much, 6. In fact, I think there's really only 6 actors, a total on screen in this movie. And you have the 3 Americans, 3 Russians, and I think it could have been a little more ambitious. Just with, I think they do what they can with like the directing and the editing to, I think, keep things, tense. But there was something about it that still just felt a little bit sort of just stale. I don't know if it was in the characterization or just sort of how the characters sort of think through the situation. That felt a little bland to me, but I think it works overall. I think you've probably seen a few movies like this. The one that I was thinking about quite a bit was Life, which I have not thought about that movie since.
Right.
The sense of thinking of this movie in comparison to it. I think this movie is better than that one. I don't think this movie is better than the press campaign that Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds did for Life.
Oh yeah,
but few movies are better than that. They really had a ripping time promoting that movie. Go back and watch YouTube clips of that if you ever want to, because they're awesome. Anyway,
I completely forgot about that. That's great.
Yeah. But ISS, solid thriller. Nothing amazing, but does the trick, I would say.
Yeah, I am kind of in the same league here with that thinking. I thought that it was passable. I ended up rating it 3 stars, which is pretty generous, I would say. I am someone who is, I don't want to say like predisposed to like these types of movies, but I love science fiction. I love space movies. And this is a specific brand of space thriller that is very popular. It's that isolated, like small, contained thriller. And like one of my favorite movies of the last now over decade is Alfonso Cuarón's Gravity, which is I think that's the best way to do this type of movie. And I think that I guess a lesser example would be Life, which those are the 2 movies that I thought about while watching this movie. And this movie does certain things pretty well in terms of keeping the pace going pretty quickly. But it also feels like a little bit half cooked. In particular, Ariana DeBose, she plays a first-time occupant of the International Space Station. So you get that kind of like very clean like exposition dump of like, the Russians knocked 3 times and like I'm the seasoned astronaut here and I'm going to tell you and the audience what you can expect in this so that we can quickly get through that and then get into the suspense. But there are certain things to her character that I feel like were introduced and then kind of abandoned. And it deals with trust in like a pretty significant way. So like there's a scene, like any movie like this has to have like an EVA scene where someone is putting themselves in danger to go do something on the exterior of the space thing. And so in that scene, she's telling Chris Messina, he's getting information from her about her backstory, like her history, and making conversation while he's doing this dangerous thing. And she says like, "Oh, this is my backstory. This is what happened. And that's who I am now. Like, that's why I'm who I am now." And like, I'm not going to give away what it is about it, but like it's directly related to like the issues that crop up in regards to how people on the space station interact and choose to trust or mistrust each other. Like, it's like
Right.
setting up this, setting up like the T-ball thing for it to be about her dealing with trust issues and navigating like trust issues. And then it's like the movie's like, oh, let's play kickball instead. Like, it's just so
Right.
weird. I don't know. Did you get that?
I think that's where, to me, I hate to, dog on anyone, but I think that's kind of where the screenplay is like, it's not connecting those dots where like you want things to be set up and paid off. I think that's kind of where it is. Like, I don't think the dialogue is like really bad or anything, but I think there's just opportunities to, again, make things kind of cohere with the characters that they just kind of, I don't really think they don't bother with. And like, I have to say, for like this kind of movie, like, what do you want it to be? You want it to be clever. Like, you want it to be, like The Martian. Like, the point of that movie is his ingenuity and figuring out how to get out of this situation. I don't want to say this is like I don't think it's like a dumb movie, but I think it could stand to be more clever in terms of like the plotting and how these characters figure out how to navigate through this, what is ultimately, I mean, just, it's a human conflict, even though it's a sci-fi movie. I mean, it's about, trust, that's basically what it is. And they don't trust each other. But yeah, it does also have those, like, so you mentioned like the EVA scene, and it is that classic thing of like, Chris Messina's out there. It's like, well, we've got some time to kill. Let's develop Ariana Bose's character for 5 minutes. The part for me that was like that, where it's like, you get those nuggets of like the space movie, is like John Gallagher Jr., his character, he's the third American. His character, like, talking about his 2 girls back home every 5 minutes. It's like a war movie. It's like how war movies have a lot of tropes. You kind of get some of that stuff with space movies, necessarily, because it's like people are together, they're in a different place, and they have a different mission, so those war movies and space movies kind of have those similarities. And so that was the one where every time he's like, gotta get back to my girls, man. I'm just like, I know about your girls, I understand, like, so that one really wore on me. And
me too.
He has some, we don't have to get into spoilers, but he has fun character moments later on down the stretch that I did like. Like, I like the performances here. I think he actually, of the 3 Americans, he's the one that sort of taps into the John Gallagher Jr. Well, I don't want to spoil anything. Whatever. Things that he's done before that I think he does well. Ariana DeBose, solid. She's really talented. This feels like a very sort of, I don't want to say step back, but I mean, I know she can do a lot more than this. And I'm not just talking about singing or dancing, but just, sorry, it's not the most meaty performance-based role out there. And Chris Messina, yes, he can do the American, astronaut commander, side of things. He can do it just fine. I don't know. I like Chris Messina to be a lot more cheeky and charming. Air last year is one that he was fun in that. He's really good in a movie called I Care a Lot, which came out a few years ago with Rosamund Pike and Peter Dinklage. He's not in it a ton, but he wears a fantastic set of suits in that movie. And there's he has some really fun to watch, really juicy repartee with Rosamund Pike. He's trying to basically intimidate her character.
Nice.
It's a really fun standoff. And like, I think back to those performances, and I'm like, he's just not doing that here. And it's not his fault. It's not that sort of thing. So I think the actors who are playing the Russians, I think maybe it's just because I haven't seen them as much stuff. I know one of them is in For All Mankind. One of them is in another prestige show that I haven't seen.
One's in Game of Thrones.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I think one's in The Americans too, which I still have not finished, but I have seen parts of it. I love that show from what I've seen. Anyway, so I do like those actors in this. Yeah. It's a solid movie. It's just one of those things where I feel like definitely like tighter writing and just developing that concept more. I think it could have been a lot better. Oh, Stowaway was another movie I was thinking of while watching this. This movie is better than Stowaway.
Oh, okay.
Which is
I never got around to
Anna
seeing
Kendrick,
Stowaway.
Toni Collette Netflix movie that's not good at all.
Ooh. That movie, this is a small tangent, but that movie kind of I never saw it. I wanted to see it because space movies and Matt Hurt, they go hand in hand, but I just never go around to it. But like, there's such a weird thing. Like, I know nothing about Stowaway, but anytime I scroll past it on Netflix, it's like the poster, the cover image is just Anna Kendrick in a spacesuit smiling. And I'm like, that doesn't tell me anything about the tone. That feels like very weird. And it's more like, this has Anna Kendrick. Watch it because of that. Don't look up any reviews or anything. Don't look up what it's about. Just here's Anna Kendrick.
Hey, we got Anna Kendrick for a movie. It was like 2021 where Netflix was like, we have actors on our platform now.
Exactly. Yeah. But that always sticks out to me. But this movie just doesn't have much going for it. Even when the kind of tension reaches like the like big moments, it feels, and again, I don't like to echo what you said. I don't want to dogpile on the script, but there seems to be some very bad kind of script issues in this. Like, it's like you said, I don't think that it really connects too many dots too well, and that goes for like connect the dots of people's actions and the cause and effect of it. Just feels like it was a little bit underwritten in certain respects. But yeah,
I mean, this director has a lot of, well, not a lot necessarily, but she kind of comes from the documentary scene. She did the film Blackfish, which is that was a an expose on SeaWorld. Well done movie. So I think that's where like the directing of this, I don't really even think, like, I think it moves pretty well. And I think, again, I think it's, in terms of how it's put together, I think it's confidently put together. But yeah, talking about it, I do think it's one of those things where it's probably just more in the scripting. I think there just could have been, things that they could have written to be quite a bit tighter there. So, one thing I'll point out in terms of visually, maybe I haven't seen enough of these movies. I'm not sure. The way, I won't spoil which characters, but the way that characters move, I think the wire work is just solid. That's what you have to do with any of these movies. But there's a scene where two characters are fighting. They're like fist fighting in a module. That's of course, no gravity and everything. And I actually really like the way it's a very interesting sort of fight scene, because the way that bodies sort of move, it's like punching underwater. It's like it has a weird sort of clumsiness to it, and it's not meant to be like a crazy action scene or whatever. But I really liked the way, I don't know if it's the actors or how they did it, but the movement of it, it's weirdly stilted, but it seems like that's probably how it would be if you were actually trying to do hand-to-hand combat in a zero-G environment. So I like that detail of it. It's not something that's like carries on the whole movie, but I thought that was cool.
I agree. That was a pretty unique kind of fight scene. One visual element of it that I appreciated and thought went a long way is like, I mean, this is a like fairly low budget movie, but like the kind of inciting incident is them seeing nuclear weapons being, exploded on the earth below them. So like there's that EVA sequence where there are little bits and pieces in the script that I'm like, I want more of this. Cause like Chris Messina's character, like he says to Ariana DeBose, he's like, make sure no one looks out the windows. Like, do not let anyone look out the windows. And like, as he's saying that, we see like in his, like behind him is just a scorched earth. And I'm like, that's really compelling. That's really good character stuff. And then it just doesn't really follow through on that, or follow through on the whole trust issues thing. I do have a couple of things to bring up in spoilers if you want to do a very quick spoiler section. Okay. So we're going to go into quick spoilers for I.S.S. And then we'll wrap up with a quick potpourri section also, but check the show notes for timestamps, all of that. Brent, what did you rate I.S.S.? Did you?
I did 3 out of 5. I think originally I was at like a 3.5, and I sort of, in hindsight, I was like, yeah, it's kind of like more of a 3. I think it'll play fine on streaming if you're into space movies. If you like that stuff, it's better than other ones I've seen. So I'll say that.
Yeah, I agree. I rated it 3 stars as well, and I also wrote a review on obsessiveviewer.com, and of course check out Brent's review on awakeinthedark.com. We're going to go into a quick spoiler section for ISS. I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. Check the show notes for timestamps to navigate away from that if you don't want to be spoiled. But here we go. Clip from the trailer for ISS.
I mean, I've seen pictures, but this is...
We don't talk politics. Here we're one.
Hey, guys.
Wait a minute, what the hell is going on down there?
Oh, whoa.
We gotta get up now, guys.
Let's get out.
Oh, my God.
Земля, это экипаж МКС.
Houston, do you read?
Okay, so spoilers on for ISS. And Brent, one of the things that really kind of bugged me about it was that, yes, there are script issues kind of across the board and undercooked elements, but like it's introduced about probably midway through that the Russians are working on a cure for radiation poisoning or something. And like... that I felt isn't given the attention that it should to drive the rest of the movie, but also on the bigger scale of things, what the fuck is the plan? like
right.
The entirety is like, oh, they need to get off the station and get back to Earth, and I'm like, where are you going to go? Like what is the next step of that? Like, you can hope that you'll get like Sandra Bullock with comms coming back up or whatever, but like I feel like the visual representation of the scorched earth is kind of and the like presumably lack of or limited mobility of the escape pod or whatever is going to make the idea of crashing down on a place that isn't going to destroy you immediately minimal. Like I don't know, that just felt very frustrating to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I feel like this movie needs some of that, The Martian, where like, and this is a movie about a group of people, obviously, and I understand that, and 2 groups of people and factions and all that, but like that sort of like thought process and like, let's think this out, that's what I kind of was missing from this movie at certain parts. So yeah, by the end, I mean, that's sort of the well, okay, I don't want to give away that movie, but there's a movie that with 2 escape pods and they end up going different places and blah blah blah. So yeah, so by the end when we get to this, yeah, it's sort of the idea of like, okay, what kind of Earth are they going to return to? And that's an interesting thought, but in process of actually doing it, you're like, are they doing the right thing? This seems kind of dumb.
Yeah, because the movie doesn't follow that up like at all.
Yeah, and you mentioned that's something that Ariana DeBose and I forget the actor who's working on it, on the Russian actor.
I think that's
one of the 2 male actors. Yeah, they're working on the thing, and she has this whole thing about how they need to work on it in zero gravity and all that stuff. And so is the idea that both US and Russia will see what they're working on as an asset because they're going to need it because of all the nukes that are flying. Did I put that together right? Or
I think that the implication is that the world is going to need the research to figure out how to save people from radiation exposure. I think.
Okay.
It's very, very vague. And then also just really quickly, the stupid like mistrust thing of like, oh, it's in the research is in pod 0 or whatever. And it's like, oh, there is
that node 0 thing was such a stupid red herring.
It was
that did not
so
need to be
dumb.
That way.
So incredibly
like, oh, there
dumb.
Is a node 0. She wasn't lying to me. It's like, that's so sitcom-y.
Yeah, exactly. It's that was where I would just kind of threw up my hands a little bit, and I was like, come on, like
Couldn't you just say it was in the letter and it's like node 0?
Exactly.
Okay, why would she know that? She just got there.
Right.
Yeah, goofy.
Yeah.
Goofy. One thing I will say that I did appreciate is so what I was referring to earlier with John Gallagher Jr. He goes into creep mode in this movie in ways I've seen him do before.
Yeah.
And he does a solid job. 10 Cloverfield Lane is one actually.
Yeah.
That it's another sort of bottle episode sort of movie that he doesn't. He's more of a good guy in that movie. He gets a lot creepier in this movie in terms of decisions that he makes.
Yeah.
But they do have a reference there. I mentioned this in my references in my blurb to the Goldberg Variations piece, the same one that they do in Silence of the Lambs. It's that same aria that Lecter's listening to when he beats the terrifying scene where he pepper sprays the way. Oh my god! So that's still burned in my memory. But I believe it's the same aria.
Okay.
So it's and he's like making a sandwich with like a way too big of a knife. John Gallagher Jr. is in this movie, so it's a fun sort of like he's creepy. It's sort of borrowed creepiness from Silence, but regardless, I thought that was a fun note. And
that's a really good point. I did appreciate that scene as kind of, I don't know if I'd say campy, but like as somewhat over the top as it is for John Gallagher Jr.'s character, just kind of make that switch. First of all, just the fact like it's not written well. Like it's just like, oh, my girls, I need to get back to my girls and everything. It's like, okay. Right. Also, I don't know, and this is a cheap shot, but I don't know if you caught this, but in the beginning of the movie, did you get the sense that they don't talk politics on the space station and that they're all just one thing? Because I feel like maybe there was 5 or 6 lines and there should have been 7. That's
neutral. It's international waters, man. Yeah, that's one of those concepts. Again, like that's where conceptually the idea that you have, a sort of 3-on-3 tribal, like you can draw parallels, whatever, like all that stuff. Same kind of thing where it's like, okay, the idea that people want to stay politically neutral, but then at the end of the day, their allegiances pull them back to the tribalism. Like that's a fun concept, but you're again, like the closest this movie gets is repeating the same line about that 5 or 6 times. It's like, fun ideas, know, but it's just like about,
And even the kind of the push for them to become like to be like these warring factions is like they just witnessed, like potentially the end of everything below. And like that's enough to kind of make it maybe make it a little bit of an awkward dinner time for them. But like then they each get the word from their respective governments to take the space station. And like, I kind of wish that there was a little bit more, like the movie covers that pretty well in terms of demonstrating the kind of the conflict that they have with whether they should follow those orders or just keep things contained or in neutral. Like, I wish that was blown up a little bit more. I wish that was done more and more focused on than what we got.
Yeah, and it sort of sides with the American side. Like we see what Chris Messina sees, but we don't see what the other one. Like there is, of course, the like we can infer that, okay, yes, he got the same instructions from Russia, blah, blah, blah. And we do spend a good amount of time with Russian characters, but I don't think it's meant to be really equal-sided. So, I mean, it's just a creative choice. And, I mean, that part's fine. I just, I don't know that if this was a real situation with 3 astronauts and 3 cosmonauts, I don't know. I think they would just tell each other and be like, this is what we got.
Yeah.
And like it's 6 of us up here. Like, what should we do?
Yeah.
Whereas this movie just plays it a different way. It plays it as more of a cat and mouse thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That was kind of nagging at me in the back of my mind during this movie is like, I don't know. I think they would probably just be like, all right, cards on the table. Like, there's really no reason. Like, again, look down at Earth.
Right.
Like, our countries are probably both decimated. Like, clearly it's a mutually assured destruction down there. Like, how are we going to think through this. Like, I think I don't think it's unreasonable to think that's probably something about how it would play out.
Yeah. And then they also kind of manufacture this whole thing where like the space station was off its like orbit, so it's going to go into the atmosphere, and like they needed to do something to get it back. Like that was so vague and it was so breezed over that I was just like, okay, yeah, I get that there's some kind of significant timetable that they need to do this. And I'm just thinking like, okay, well, then why are they killing Chris Messina on his spacewalk and not working together to do this? It just doesn't really.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to be a Sunshine thing with another better movie.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Where someone would come back, that's why,
Yep.
I knew that Chris Messina was coming back one way or another. So anyway, yeah, it's, I think it's serviceable. I still think there's other ones I've seen that are worse than it, but I think there are definitely ones that are better than it. I think it's probably about middle of the pack ish.
Yeah, I agree. It's something I'm not really going to think much about, but I'm glad that I saw it. It
sounds like most people haven't seen it.
Yeah,
a few million this past weekend. So
I feel special for having seen it.
Yeah, right. I feel bad because like Bleecker Street, like picking this up. I think this debuted at Cannes or something.
Oh, okay.
And they're probably like wanting. They're probably like, oh well, it's a sci-fi thing. Maybe get people out for it, but. Yeah, people weren't biting. So I don't know. Maybe on Hulu or wherever it streams later this year, maybe people will catch up with that. I don't know.
Yeah, as long as they put like a big picture of Chris Messina smiling on the cover to get their attention.
Strong mustache in this movie.
Yeah.
I will not shame the mustache game that he's got.
Same
got
here.
On him, so.
That man can grow some facial hair, and also John Gallagher Jr. was a little weird seeing him without any facial hair. It was strange. Yeah. It was strange, but that's I.S.S. It is currently in theaters for a very short amount of time, but probably. And let us know what you thought. Obviously, you can email in at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. Also find Brent on all the social medias and everything. I'll have links in the show notes. Brent, to wind down, do you want to do a very quick potpourri segment for the show, and then we can kind of close it out if you're good with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So, I'm gonna give mine, and then you can give like a potpourri thing to close us out. But I wanted to, like last week on the podcast that as of this recording, no one's listened to except for Patreon because it came out today. Check out patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. But I'm doing something a little bit new with potpourri in as long as I can, since I'm doing weekly installments of Obsessive Viewer and I'm having guests kind of come in and out and everything. I did this with Sam last week, but this week, if you didn't listen to that episode this week, what I'm doing is when I have a guest on, I will, assuming that I have the time, I will go on to their Letterboxd and go to their movies watched and sort by highest rated and sort by the ones that are in my watch list. And so I did that to yours, and I watched on Criterion Channel Chungking Express. And it was my first time watching it, and I enjoyed it. I don't think I got as much out of it as a lot of people do, which I feel kind of ashamed for. But I thought it was. I thought it was very good. I wasn't aware that it was like kind of an anthology, like two stories. And I've got to say, the first one, it's also streaming on Max, by the way. The first one didn't really grip me. The police officer and the drug underworld lady, that didn't really grab me all that much. But the second story with the police officer and the waitress was pretty engaging and interesting. And yeah, it makes me very interested to see more Wong Kar-Wai movies, because I am woefully underserved in terms of watching his movies. So I watched Chungking Express. I enjoyed it. You rated it pretty high, hence why I watched it. How do you feel about Chungking Express?
Yeah, I mean that's a great one. Have you? So was this your first Wong Kar-Wai, out of curiosity, or?
I believe it was. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I definitely have blind spots for him as well. 2046, I know it was streaming somewhere and I think I missed it, but that's one I definitely need to see. In the Mood for Love is still probably my favorite of his, but I do love Chungking Express. Yeah, it just has such an awesome verve and energy to it. Do you have California Dreamin' stuck in your head now?
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. That and the other song that she sings in it, Dreams? No.
Yeah.
Is it?
There's another one that she does too. Yeah. I know California Dream. They play a ton in that movie, but yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, this is, man, I don't even want to make a New Year's resolution for movie stuff, but I'll say it would be cool to watch more stuff on Criterion because I've had it for years and I really just don't watch nearly enough. The last thing I watched on it was Inland Empire.
Oh yeah.
Which I think had hit the service last year or sometime. It was like one of those ones that was kind of unobtainium. It was just hard to find for a while. It wasn't on wasn't streaming anywhere and the DVDs, I think the DVD was out of print. So it's cool for stuff like that. That's like, I think not Possession, something else is that way. Something hit it that not Possession. It was something else that wasn't, that I haven't seen or anything. Like the stuff that they bring out that's like out of print DVDs or stuff like that. And it's like on the service. It's really, really cool.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to do more. I don't, it's so tough. It's so, I did watch, so I guess I watched The Fire on,
oh yeah,
it has
Criterion. Like it's I think it's like an exclusive.
We got a screener for that, but I ended up just watching it on Criterion instead.
Nice.
That was super good. I love that movie. So yeah, I'd like to watch more. I know there's speaking of David Lynch, there's a Lynch Oz. It's a documentary that came out last year that's on Criterion now. That was one that's kind of on my 2023 catch-up list.
Nice.
So we'll see if I get to that. That would be really neat. I just know the poster and the title, and I'm going to assume it has to do with David Lynch and Wizard of Oz connections. So I mean, I'm in. That works for me. So yeah, but that's cool. I mean, In the Mood for Love is definitely one I would recommend as well.
It's definitely on my list. I was going to try to squeeze that in as well, but I didn't have the time to. So, but that's definitely on my list. And the song that I was referencing was the Cranberries' Dreams, that Faye Wong sings. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I've talked about it for weeks now at this point, but I am loving Criterion Channel. I got the annual subscription and I have a list on Letterboxd. That's all the Criterion Channel, all the movies on Criterion Channel that I'm watching throughout the year. So check that out. But yeah, anything else that you've watched lately or you're interested in watching before we wrap up?
I watched Self-Reliance and liked it. I know you saw it too, and I think you liked it, but we don't have to do like a minute review of that. So I'll shout out a true crime Netflix series, because of course, why not?
Sure.
That just came out called American Nightmare. This is a 3-episode miniseries. This is detailing crime investigation that happened in California in 2015. And so basically there was a kidnapping. A woman is kidnapped. Her boyfriend goes to the police and tells them the details of it. And this detective pretty much decides that because of the details that he's saying, it seems weird to him, like that the kidnapper had like a wetsuit on, and he blindfolded him with duct tapes, like goggles, like swimming goggles. There were just details in it that sounded weird to the detective. I'll say sounded weird to him.
Okay.
And he pretty much decides that he's making all this up. The boyfriend whose girlfriend was kidnapped. And I'll say that's probably maybe where I should leave it.
Okay.
Basically, I'll say this. For some reason, like the media takes hold of it. The media who didn't understand one of the through lines of the movie Gone Girl. And they say this is like the real life Gone Girl, that she kidnapped herself. So I'll let you watch the series and decide if that's actually what happens. Spoiler, it isn't. And I think it's it's 3 episodes. They're like 45 minutes long each. I think it's one that if you're not super into true crime, I think the way they break it down into 3 chapters, I think it's very palatable. It's a very frustrating story. And I think it's, for me, the sort of takeaways for me are that, the media circus thing, if the media can take something wrong and screw up investigations, they will. Nancy Grace is even in this documentary, or there's a clip of her saying, "Is this like Gone Girl?" And it's like, dude, Missy Pyle is playing a version of you in Gone Girl. It's like, you have totally lost the plot. Like, you do not understand this is the snake eating its tail. And it's the classic thing of like, that's what that part of what that movie is about, is how you guys screwed up. Like, you screw around with the court of public opinion and people paid for it. So that's one aspect of it. And another is just the classic thing I say about true crime a lot, in that just how police investigations are conducted and the need by detectives to have someone, the conviction to build a narrative that you have to stand behind. It doesn't allow for uncertainty and scrutiny. And I think that pressure, that whatever, you can talk about it sociologically, however you want to say, that it puts on the system that there needs to be an answer, in this case, did a disservice to at least these 2 people.
Wow.
And that's tough. I don't know how to square that. I mean, it's so easy to look at this and say, like, this detective screwed up. The FBI gets involved, and then you have the police dealing with the FBI and all that stuff. But I don't think there's an answer to it. But it's a weird part of the sort of, I guess, justice system, that the need to, I mean, really, it's all jumping to conclusions. To say that, to see a situation and follow a hunch and say, this is what I think it is, and I can't budge on it. I have to be certain. If I'm a detective and I'm investigating and I have who I think could be the perpetrator, I have to take that.
Yeah.
So it's the state of things. It's how things are. And those are kind of the things that it made me think about the most. And that there's someone else in the 3rd episode who does do really diligent, solid police work.
Nice.
And does do the job well. So I think there's like, I'm glad that I say character because it really happened, but I'm glad that person is in the documentary, and it's like, there is room for doing this, this thoughtfully and correctly. And, it's not always the detectives really, quite frankly, screw up this miserably and monumentally, but but it makes a series like this really, really pop. So, American Nightmare, it's on Netflix. It like just came out this year. So,
I had seen ads for it, and I think the filmmakers are the same people that made the Tinder Swindler. Is that right? Do you know?
Yes, I think they've done a couple of those sort of like streaming documentary things.
Yeah, I liked Tinder Swindler. I liked saying Tinder Swindler because
5 times fast.
Yeah. But I'm very curious to check that out. So that's interesting. It's American Nightmare. It's on Netflix. 3-episode documentary series, true crime. And Brent, that brings us to the end of the Obsessive Viewer Podcast, episode 413. I want to say thank you for coming on the show once again, and for lending your time to me. If you could tell people where they can find you online and social media, all that stuff, and of course links will be in the show notes of this episode. So where can we find you online?
Well, the new thing for 2024 is I'm on Blue Sky to add to the plethora of other smattering of other social media platforms that I'm on. But so I'm on Blue Sky. I think that one's probably Awake in the Dark Reviews. I'm on Facebook, Twitter X, Threads, Blue Sky, Letterboxd, all of it. All those, probably best way to navigate to that is on my site, awakeinthedark.com.
Yep, great. And also, just this is inside baseball, but like you and Andy both do all the social media stuff for the IFJ, and you do a great job. And I'm very
thank you.
So thank you for sharing my stuff when I throw it out to you guys. So
the Indiana Film Journalists Association is also on Blue Sky as well, and that's, I think, Indie FJA or something.
I think so. I think that's right. Yeah.
That's the Twitter handle as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So follow it all over the place. But Brent, once again, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a blast. And there was something I was going to say, but I can't remember. I hope you get around to doing the top 10 episode. I'm looking forward to listening to it. Yeah. So
thank you. Yeah. Hopefully in January. Yeah. We'll see.
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, I'm going to start playing us out. Once again, you can find my stuff at obsessiveviewer.com. Also write into the show at matt@obsessiveviewer.com and check out the Patreon, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, and my other shows, Anthology, Tower Junkies. We'll be back next week with a review of Argyle and The Beekeeper. Until then, thank you guys so much for listening. And Brent, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And now, enjoy this short clip from our Patreon exclusive feed. For this and more exclusive content, join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. So I did think that was interesting. That was effective. That was scary. And even when Hugh and Mr. Dudley, who, by the way, I did not mention this last week, but Mr. Dudley is played by Robert Longstreet, who I adored. He played Lonnie in Halloween Kills, but he was also he's a mainstay of a lot of Mike Flanagan's work. He played Barry the Chunk in Dr. Sleep. Thank you for listening to the Obsessive Viewer podcast. This episode was produced and edited by me, Matt Hurt. If you have feedback, thoughts on our reviews, or just want to connect, you can email me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. For more information on all of our shows, including a full archive of our episodes and show notes, plus plenty of written reviews, visit obsessiveviewer.com. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a follow on social media and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. Also, consider rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible to help increase our visibility and help grow our community. If you want to support the show and help keep us going while getting early access to new episodes as well as a steady stream of exclusive content, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Our theme song is A Little Mad Sometimes by As Good As It Gets. For more of their music, check them out on Spotify and at asgoodasitgetsmusic.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.